There's a guy from my town. I don't even know if he went to my school. He was on my T-ball team. A guy named Robert Rodriguez. Him and and other people from my town connected to him and to connected to the branch families, healthcare families. Also with known roles with recorded nature of child abuse, sex crimes. No, and further demonstrable. But the way it's not being admitted because of a method that um has people juxtaposing needs to lie in relationship to where people are supposed to. In other words, there's laws. When someone says, "Let me report rape threats recorded with a school and slanders of people." In other words, these are people being used for evidence fabrications, evidence fabrication methods in relationship to lie progression cover-up methods. In other words, breaching methods asked to be reported in the media note in relationship to this nation's hundreds of four shared nations with policing of the industry. It's not a joke. That was never free, the standards of it. That's what really is the problem with America's original terror impositions. Um, Not just free speech, but terror with speech, with sensibilities. So this guy brought up a untimely death out of nowhere in a pattern of confessions, which is the only reason I know people tied to him was because they went out of their way to make confessions about me, to me, in relationship to their role selling drugs with intercity police families, interbranch families, and known juxtaposed criminal enterprises. For example, in relationship to my freshman health class video project on this. Because they had a video they showed us about area criminal enterprises and about beads and stuff like that. Right after they did that, there was a guy that was I saw he came hard. He got kicked out of school soon after that, but he had a bead on in the hallway, and then there was narratives around that. See, but this is also juxtaposed with the police who were selling the drugs when they were little. And the police explorers clicks and how they're using that for not only short-term evidence fabrications and rumors with police allowed to tell lies, but with them telling it for natures of organized crime categorically. In other words, not in relationship to there's no honest nature to a breach nature of policing and litigation, predatory litigation, natures and methods. So this guy brought up a school to me. In other words, I brought it up online to him that he had mentioned that walking by me. I brought up lying to me. He was threatening to me. He didn't want me to talk about it. So in other words, the person who never had a conversation with me in his life went out of his way to say, "Oh, you see, remember that girl I was walking by with one time, and she died from the drugs." Like something like that, and he body language like it was applied to a sex offender house with other connections to drugs with the police and healthcare people related to it, EMS people, and fire department families. In other words, with roles with evidence related evidence fabrications, and methods of it. So I don't know these people, even though they went in my grade, they know my name. That's why they can't put anything in paper, and that's why how they set up rumors and they set up little cliques when people were young. That's why they went out of their way to have people, unconnected people, make sequential confessions to me while I was growing up in relationship to me handing in my video presentation on them in other words, because this was carrying over from related confessions from when I was in grammar school. With there's a guy who emailed me who mentioned he was in conversation with the Gold family. I never had anything to do with them. They had sneaky trick games with little kids when they were young. When I was when I was in grammar school, same grammar school, with a principal recently arrested for taking pictures of kids. Now, a guy with the same name made confessions to me, used two different names on our answer machine, kept calling me, calling my house, calling another number of my family. After I called one time, I called him back, but after I only called one time, and he told me he didn't know who blocked my post from Facebook page. Facebook was brought up to me with online threats after the kid disappeared. After I mentioned the untimely death, one of the untimely deaths tied to it, other stuff. And then he came back online out of nowhere, and he said, "Subby Scalora lives next to the to a Highcrest school," and that was it. He said his wife works for a dentist. In other words, people keep saying this name Subby Scalora. That's an evidence fabrication method. I never had one conversation in my life. People admitted to roles with related evidence fabrications with related police forms at once, and tied to other family members of him too, involved with the same stuff, and with other confessions tied to them. So I never had one conversation with Subby Scalora in my life, and he's got ties to the man with the rape threats online, tied to a court per their confessions online with messages, with threats. Why would they do that? Because it was after those threats that they arrested me for responding to it, hiding those threats. In other words, they've been blocking me from reporting related confessions and requests to call police in relationship to court police since 2004 and 5, with involvements with girls who made related confessions. And like with Subby Scalora, I'm not with forgot his name, Enzo Fienza. I met him one time, and his cousin one time. I met them. They said they admitted to with Rocky Hill Police involvements with drugs, and then they admitted to Wethersfield with a Detective Dylan, who I've never had a conversation with, but he's also involved with the narratives with my neighbors who said they called the police in related ways. And related to the police with other confessions with their roles with larceny stuff, going into houses between towns and stuff like that, in relationship to their evidence fabrication needs, because they've been maintaining states' positions with evidence fabrication roles in relationship to exploitations that have been standardized to have them exploit them in contexts where then they are prompted to make confessions and make statements to people and take part with group methods of justifying database stacking with illusions. In other words, we have systematic evidence fabrication problems. This is why there's laws. When someone asks to report threats to schools, you're supposed to acknowledge those threats. They make up lies when that happens, and then threaten the person not to say anything, or to sue. In other words, but the court is already involved because they have the court police involved with the off-campus police, a number of departments at once involved with related evidence fabrications and drug contacts and exploitations of women contacts, using them with paired names in areas in relationship to this, and little tactics where they do evidence fabrications, pretending, putting when they need to tell a lie, and they don't have no way to do it, they just have strangers make confessions to people, and then those people know those people, because that tells truths, even though they're lying. You don't have to prove they're lying. That's a crime to be with to threaten rape online, and to admit to spreading rumors with courts, and that's not even debatable. I mean, the part of that's debatable is not debatable, the nature of it, because they also posted fake legal cases that they know were not me. In other words, it was just someone with my name, and they were spreading rumors about me between campuses and stuff like that, because they were doing that when I was on campus, because in relationship to how they were used. They use professors for evidence fabrications. In other words, cover-ups in relationship to the way local federal criminals through time, through my age groups, and then now with police forms and stuff like that that are adults, how they were used for evidence fabrications and drug dealing. That's why we have the gangs juxtaposed, and it all blamed on them. Now on the predatory litigation natures, they're forced justified ill standards. Look at Haiti. The only reason there's a problem in Haiti is not for one side's fault. It's for what's really the problem in Haiti being blamed only on lies and delusions in relationship to all that's defending the nature of business criminally. And then that says that's the only what we have to be relying upon. In other words, it's not by accident. This is per method that forced every legal nature of every nation only realize there's a predatory legal litigation nature, self-defense nature of that. So now we can't we can't defend ourselves because they only care about justice in relationship to their needs with the industry of the police in relationship to business platform that's being used for evidence fabrications in relationship to more or severe natures of organized crime, breaching methods, evidence fabrication methods. There are proofs that this is tied to the ISIS narratives. With incomplete, predatory, insidiously predatory summary convictions of American history. It's not a joke. It's not. In other words, we have to admit worse than broke. Delusional branches. So then I called the school. First I went on the Facebook page to see what would happen. I read something about English because I wasn't going to do anything, but then I saw a pattern of Confederate flags, and that's attached to the rape threats, and the threats for me not to report to the reported threats at school, because I have confessions from students too. They've been sabotaging my story since before I graduated in relationship to how I was going to have professional help with it, because it's a relationship to, for them. The relationship to related, reported, uncharged 9/11 acts, pretending other 9/11 witnesses into fake conversations in relationship to proving evidence sequence shifting from inside the federal court that day in Manhattan, and the police covering up that just made a whole narratives, and they have everyone just playing top-down lies as sensibilities towards business theater only realize respected. Like that's how we had colonization, mass serial killers. Not freedom of speech left. All kinds of lies and delusions in relationships to business relationships. So when you look at Haiti, or when you look at any urban context, colonization is terror laws, not for the source of one nation. Same thing happened to them. That's why there's no difference with the infrastructure of our nations. It was all forged. In other words, the best of it is limited by colonization's terror laws. Even before they had cars, they had these homes designed. So we look at Haiti. Everyone's blaming what's really the problem, all the finite lies, body of value truths. They're not let, and they're forced to entertain lies and delusions. So evolution is not let. In other words, real truth, active understanding is not left. So evolution is not a garden, and it's not going to get better. Because it won't from that shape, of course not. See, but we don't have litigation age. We don't have any leadership. We have maturity that was only let to pretend it was worthy what it's not. We have each age of innocence exploited from birth to death. We're beat. We lost. Retreat means your reactions to the top terrorists, and with the worst, most insidious ones right there helping you with the top terrorists. What do we do next? Okay. And we were played. This is why we have a mass incarceration problem. This is why we have the mass crime problem before that. This is why we have the mass ignorance with our campuses before that. It's not by accident. So then I called this school for one time, first time, right? And the guy said he didn't know who took it off my post. In other words, they took down my post. And there was a Joshua Julian. I never had a conversation with my life, only online. His name was used before. I heard his name before in related ways with drug stuff growing up and with dirty interbranch natures. And how? Because, for example, there are local federal criminals with known ties as co-defendants and as co-defendants of a former director of the FBI, the defendant Robert Luskin, in relationship to fake conversations about cases they tied me to, with lies too. They said my father didn't win a case that he won, and after I was out of high school, he won it. There was corrupt union guys that used to run the drugs, have roles with the drugs and the evidence fabrication natures in my schools when I was a little kid. In other words, with pension thieves and stuff like that. But they still had credibility, even though there was guys like with them that would go around the job sites and it was known. In other words, saying, "Oh, we run everything with the cocaine and stuff like that." See, what they leave missed is the ways to connect with the way they been used in the campuses, intercity through time, to maintain life progressions for adults. All ages of innocence are exploited. So it's very simple. So I called the guy that was it. He said he didn't know who took down my Facebook post. Then he called me back. Then he kept calling back. And he called my family on another phone. So I called back. Then he said he was the one who switched the Facebook post. And he used two different names on my machine. First he said Mike Levine. Then he'd switch his name. Mike Levine is also attached to the body dumping confession, drug confessions. I never had a conversation with Mike Levine in my life. One time he tried to approach me behind Stop and Shop and say hello to me like he knew me. He never said hello to me one time before that. Right at the time, connected to the related, already known child abuse stuff and the guy with the pictures. This is the guy I called up. He was a principal. And he was taking pictures of the kids. He used two names. And this is after I'd already been arrested. I went to CCSU. I asked, could I see an old teacher? And they wouldn't let me leave. And so I was just sitting there. And the guy, not long, but the guys, I'm sitting there, and I'm telling her I'm going to leave now. He wouldn't let me leave. Then he offered that Miss Gilmore that she no longer had that name, and that she was divorced. So I said, oh, because that name is associated with a guy who attached me to fake conversation. I never met the guy. In other words, there was other people related to this. That's why I said 9/11, recorded 9/11 crimes. I was attached to fake conversations about that in relationship to the evidence sequence shiftings inside the court, tied to the defendants who were in my grade growing up, and tied to spreading rumors about me growing up, and then spreading rumors about me behind my back, in ways with methods where you never get to engage the conversation. because, in other words, there was an Alicia involved too, with girls switching names. And this messes with the sensibilities of women. Like in other words, in relationship to deans of both college with related, recorded, known, and further demonstrable identity switching stuff. In relationship to the threats with the evidence fabrications used as threats for people not to report related crimes, obfuscating people's education. How many years of education? I could have had another degree, but I'm not being able to go to the schools because one school because they're trapped. Because I'm not, when I told them about this over the phone, the guy went, "Luke, I am your father." Police officers not supposed to. There's laws against that. When someone's trying to report recorded rape threats, see, they did that to try to make me react. In other words, they got trapped. In the background, they have professors not only with recorded identity shifting stuff like Dean Judd with with, arresting someone pretending to be or pulling them over on the highway pretending to be an officer, and then with a Dean Alford with another guy, with two guys switching his names. So when I went to court, I got arrested for just going to ask to see a teacher. And then a cop came. I told the guy after I told the guy, well, I need to know about the guy. He didn't. That's when the cop showed up. Some Dean, a Cohen guy, a real goofy guy, real fraud guy. You can see it. With, just all real fraud. It was like setup. They're like animals to the prevention of natures of organized crime with the police. I'm not a police foreman. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just an English major. The communications. So they admitted to, in the court, they admitted to, and there's also proofs, recorded proofs that they put three, four fake police reports with the same charges when I got arrested. With police from different departments, when I got arrested just for going to the school and asking to see one teacher. And God knows what, I know the guy said a lie to Officer Magnanos from East Hartford, who was on campus. And it's worse than that because I didn't even get the report when I originally went to report first. Now I have to deal with all this first, and all that's recorded, and then this recorded. So I called the guy. I called the grammar school brought up to me in the threat with the group with the rape threats, and made threats against related students in the school, in particular, and against, in particular, mothers in my area, also involved with police threats in relationship to, had to do with how they were, per them, it had to do with how they were, with the organized crime, with the union stuff interstate, with its involvement with the 9/11 context, for example, in the federal court that day. And with New Britain Court and other area court and police connections to roles with the confessions from the related exploited women, with the name shared into related evidence fabrications, and like real estate crimes with like a guy from Lena's Pizza and his wife admitted to a Maggie, and with the name switching roles. But see, they admitted they didn't admit it direct. What they admitted was the roles with it. In other words, what they don't understand. So everyone wants everyone to lean on the experts, and this is the nature of organized crime that's with the experts, and they're in the maintenance of themselves with this. So then this guy kept calling me, and I called back a couple times, but God knows what he said. But this is the guy involved with further natures of active child abuse, and with the name switches. In the court, they admitted to the falsified police reports, and a court investigator telling them to write other. They told us it was a dismissal because they admitted to the falsified police reports. even pretending to me I was in a hospital, which is another pattern. They also told a lie in the media saying I had relationships to psychologists. I had no relationships to psychologists growing up, and I have no relationships to psychologists now. And the ones that I tried to ask to report related area drug problems, I went there to report area drug problems. They pretend I went and had conversations about my father and about these cases with the police forms involved. No, that never happened. So no one puts anything in writing. The court communicated that they consciously don't put anything in writing and have rules with threats, with the same rapes that there's laws for them not to. How do you report? In other words, you need a lawyer, a police form to police the police forms, because there are a number of police forms involved with the narratives and with recorded proofs involved with exploitation of intercity internal investigations, too, with related officers switching names. Like they had an Officer McGee on a transport who switched his name with other officers who pretended to be my doctor years earlier when I tried to report the body